Hi, I'm Kenley Andrew. I'm a third year Family Youth and Community Sciences major with a minor in leadership. And for the leadership interview, I interviewed Shaquille Lowe, who is the Assistant Director of Family Relations. I believe that's a specific title within the Office of New Student and Family Programs. Um, I have worked with this office with NSFP since my first semester at UF. I was selected as a preview staffer that year, so that's when I began working with NSFP. Um, and now in my third year, I've continued working with them and growing with them as an office. So I was selected as a first year Florida peer leader, um, and that is also under NSFP. And so throughout the years, I've kind of grown um, to see the professional staff members within that office change. Some have left, some have come, and so Shaquille, he goes by Shaq. He actually just became a part of this team this semester. So this was his first semester, um, which is part of why I wanted to interview him. I really am intrigued by him. He's a really welcoming person. I have had different relationships with the different pro staff members that I've encountered throughout the years. Um, and not that me and Shaq are super close, but he definitely was more welcoming than a lot of them have been. Some of them I felt like it was a very strictly professional, like, you are my boss relationship, whereas he, when I come into the office, has always been very like, hey Kinley, how's it going? And I just felt very comfortable with him. And then also, I'm a part of Campus Diplomats, and one of our roles is to staff and completely run Fall and Spring Family Weekend. And as the assistant director for families, that is a program that he heads, he organizes. So he came into DIPS a lot, into our meetings, and really worked alongside us and worked with us a lot to develop this program since it was his first time doing it. And so seeing him in that role and working very closely with him, and really respecting the way that he ran it and led it compared to past years, is one of the main reasons why I decided to interview him for this. Um, my my perception, of him during the interview, was kind of what I perceived him as before. He has a really good grasp on leadership. He is very receptive to our ideas and people that kind of have been the man on the ground running. He wants to know what it's like to run the program and to be someone really volunteering it and staffing it. And so he really takes in consideration to those people that he's leading, which is what he talked a lot about during the interview. He's very intentional, and he really understands theory as well. Like, I feel like sometimes people chalk leadership up to just like being a strong person and having a strong personality, but a lot of the things that he touched on, like he talked about non-positional leadership and situational leadership and how these are really important in his role. And through the interview, I realized that he really has a great grasp on what it means to be a leader and why he um, leads the way that he leads. Um, some of the key characteristics that he talked about during this interview, he talked about being direct. So he said that he really appreciates when he's the follower, a leader that tells them exactly what he needs, or what they need. And someone that is like, all right, Shaq, I need you to do this and this and this, because that way he has specific goals that he knows he needs to reach. But at the same time, he really appreciates being allowed autonomy. So he tries to do this when he's a leader as well. So while he's being direct and giving direct instructions and goals, kind of giving a little bit of leeway and freedom as to how the person reaches that goal. So, like, if he knows that he has to get 400 family members checked in, and that's the direct order, he's going to allow freedom in how we choose to do this in the best way, if that makes sense. He also talked about credibility, and so this is something where, like, with him, he came into a new position this semester, and this is a position that he's working alongside people that have been in this office for years, and so they know exactly how other people have ran this position and how people have ran these programs that he's in charge of. Um, And so building credibility and really doing research on what he's going to be doing. He doesn't want to go into a meeting where they're about to plan family weekend and then not have any knowledge of what years past have been like. So he thinks credibility is really important. Just in general, he doesn't believe that anyone should go into a room full of people that know what they're doing and you're the leader and you not know exactly what's going on. My perception of him after the interview, I kind of touched on this during, but I really was surprised at how credible and how like concrete he was. I knew that he was a nice person. I knew that he led, like when he was in our DIPS meetings, like he was very welcoming to our ideas and to our input. So I knew this about him, but his backing up and reasoning behind it was just so much more concrete and intentional than I realized. He talked about in the interview how it's easy to underestimate your impact and how like being off stage versus on stage, when you're a leader, there's really not that much of a difference between it. And I can really see that now, having seen that and having heard that directly from his mouth. Now seeing him, he really is always on, and he's always being that compassionate and that intentional leader, which I really appreciate as someone that has been a follower of his. Some key things that he mentioned in the interview, some key statements, were that one, it's easy to underestimate your impact. That one really stuck with me because as someone who has been a leader on campus with Preview and First Year Florida and Campus Diplomats, I think sometimes we forget that even though we are regular students just like everyone else, we do have these labels on us that people look up to, and that I'm wearing a Preview backpack at all times, so even though in my head I'm not wearing my polo and I'm not representing the Preview program, that someone will see that and acknowledge that I'm a Preview staffer and then directly associate with me or disassociate that with me. So the fact that he talked about it's easy to underestimate your impact really did carry into my thought processes beyond the interview that I had with him. He also really touched on that his leadership styles are always changing. This was something that even at the end of the interview, I asked if he had any like key points that he really wanted to like drive home, and this was what he said. He was that leadership is situational. Leadership is always changing, because if you go into the same if you go into different situations and different groups of people with the same leadership style, it's not always going to be successful. How we talked about situational leadership in class and how different groups of people need different leadership styles. Some need to be more supportive, some need to be more authoritative or directive or participative. Like, we need to adjust the way that we interact with the people that we're leading in order to make the most success out of that. So I really appreciated that he talked about that, because that is something that we talked about so much in class. So yeah, just that leadership's always changing and that it's easy to underestimate your impact. Those were the two main things that he talked about a lot. I really appreciated getting to interview him. I already had respect for him, but I definitely have a lot of respect for him now. I feel like he really knows what he's doing, and I'm really glad that he's come to UF. Like I said, he just started, so I think he'll be a really great asset to our university and to the new Student and Family Programs office. So he'll be working with Preview and Fall Family Weekend again, and I think family members at UF are really lucky to have a professional like Shaq working for them. So I'm really glad I had this opportunity. Thank you.